Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2014 American Coach American Revolution motorhome, we're going to be showing you how to install the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system for the coach side only. Before we get into that though, let's take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to be what you need. So what this kit is designed to do is allow you to get the parts you need just for the motorhome side. That way you can get up and going and flat towing your vehicle down the road again. So primarily this kit's used, for a couple of reasons, but what we usually see is people end up changing their motorhome, getting into a different one or a newer one, whatever the case may be. And that's exactly what the deal is here today. So our neighbor had a different coach that had air brakes on it, and they were pulling their vehicle, flat towing it, and it was all set up for the Demco Air Force One. And when they, changed into this motorhome, they didn't bother with going on their old coach, pulling the mold parts off and everything like that. But their vehicle was already set up with all the Air Force One stuff. So as opposed to having to buy a whole entire new kit or completely change the parts on the vehicle and whatnot, you can use the kit that's just for the motorhome here, get those parts set up on the coach, and once you have that done, you're able to take your vehicle that's already set up, right, plug right into it and flat tow it down the road again. That's one of the really nice things about the Air Force One system, is that there's a bunch of different variations or kits of it, just for about any scenario. So just like the one we talked about, you can get the motorhome side only. Let's say down the road, if you end up trading in your current vehicle that you tow and don't want to bother with taking those parts off of it, you can get just the vehicle side. Or if you get a second vehicle you'd like to flat tow, they offer second vehicle kits. And then of course the whole entire package. So if you happen to, end up here and you're looking for the whole kit, that'll allow you to get the parts on your motorhome as well as the vehicle, that's available as well. One of the things I did think that was worth mentioning is the blue air line that plugs into the back of your coach and into the front of your towed vehicle. You're not going to get that with this kit. So for whatever reason, if you want an extra one, or yours is damaged, or you don't have one at all, that is something that you're gonna have to grab separately. Just a quick rundown, if you're unfamiliar with how the system works, what it's gonna do is tie into your coach's air system. And so what would happen is your coach's air system would fill up this tank here, all right, and then whenever you hit the brakes in the coach, that's going to allow air pressure to run back to our fitting here, which is connected to the front of your car, and from the car to its braking system. And so when you hit the brakes in here, that air pressure comes back, turns on that operating unit essentially, and applies the pedal and applies the brake pedal in the car that you're towing. And so this is a truly proportional system, meaning however you're hitting the brake inside of the coach, the towed vehicle is going to do the same thing. So it just makes for a much more comfortable and predictable braking experience. Other than that, at the end of the day, not really a whole lot to it. This is going to come with pretty much everything that you're going to need to get it installed. And so if you're looking for just the motorhome side of the Air Force One, this is going to be the answer for you. As far as the installation goes, it's not really that it's complicated. It's just trying to work underneath of a big coach, not a ton of room. So take your time and stay patient if this is something that you plan on doing yourself. And hopefully we can give you some ideas and an insight along the way to hopefully make it a little bit easier on you. With that in mind, why don't we go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be working underneath of our coach, and we're going to be essentially right where our axles are located. So right up in that area. And first thing that we're going to do is mount up our tank here. Here's how we got our tank mounted. And with a lot of this install, I'll have it done already. There's just not a lot of room under here to work, and almost more beneficial to show you how I did it as opposed to each individual step, just because you won't see a whole lot. But this is how it turned out, and I mounted it to this beam here that's essentially right above our tag axle. And this beam, I did have to drill a hole in it and put it through the bracket in our air tank with a nut and a bolt, and it's solid, out of the way, and not gonna go anywhere. Now we can get some of our fittings installed. And so if you move forward towards the front of the coach, kind of in between the tag axle and the front axle, you're gonna have this, this air block here. And what you can do, this fitting that I got screwed in, originally there's just a plug there. And that plug's gonna have an Allen head keyway in it, a 5/16. You can just remove it. And when you're doing this, it's really tight. The plug's in there tight because all the sealer on it. And the kit's gonna come with this fitting here, and the threads will match up with the plug. That fitting, this new one, already has sealer and stuff on it. So just get that started in there and tighten it down. It's an 11/16 socket that you can use for that. And that's going to be for our metered air. Now, as far as the supply, you'll have this hose, the one on the bottom of that valve, that's going to it. And it's a big, thick, usually green in color hose. What you want to do is get a lot of times there's undercoating on it, this black rubberized stuff. Get all that cleaned off real good. You can use soapy water, some rubbing alcohol, something like that. Get it nice and clean. And what you're going to do is tee this quick connect fitting in there. So cut this line in half, and before you do that, make sure you drain all the air out of your rig. That way you don't have 100 pounds air pressure and you go and cut this line and everything get crazy. So to drain the air, you can just simply, with the motorhome off, hit the brakes a whole bunch of times and watch until your gauge goes to 0, and you'll cut that line and simply just tee this fitting right in. And to give you an example of that, I actually have a spare one and some spare line that I can show you how to make the cuts and how this actually plugs in, just to give you a clear demonstration as opposed to trying to do all this way up here in this tight area. This is the smaller fitting of the two, but the concept is the same, okay? And whenever we make any plug-in quick connect connections, this is how you're gonna do it. So with that supply line, you know, like I said, you wanna cut it in half. And whenever you cut these air lines, you wanna make sure that you have good, clean, straight cuts on them. So you can use a tool like this. There's also tubing cutter tools. You can use a utility knife. However you decide to do it, just don't use a regular pair of snips, because if the end kind of gets pinched or kinked like, then it'll probably leak. And so, again, this is just demonstration. When you cut this stuff, that's how you want it to look. You know, good, clean, straight cut, no burrs on it, anything like that. So pretending that this is the supply line, you know, you'd cut it, plug it into the fitting, and when you plug it in, you'll feel it kind of latch into place, all right? Then the other side would tee in like that, and that will complete that connection. And then for all of the other smaller 1/4 inch fittings, same deal. You know, you want to make sure you got that good, clean, straight cut on it, and that will just push into place as well. So once you have that teed in and that fitting installed on that block, you can take the bundle of 1/4 inch air line that comes with the kit and cut off, in our cases, about 2 6-foot long pieces. Essentially, we just need enough length to run both these lines to where we have our tank mounted up. So got them cut, plugged into the fittings like we talked about, and then these just run back to our tank. And essentially all the lines that we route on the side of the frame, there's just big bundles of wiring and whatnot. You can just follow that path to get back there. Whenever you route these lines, though, you know, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts, and try not to put super sharp bends or get any kinks in them. So back at the tank, the line that's plugged into this port here, That's our metered air connection. So this is the line that's coming from that fitting that we put into the block. As far as the supply line, the one that we teed into with our fitting on the big thick green air line, that's going to get plugged into this fitting right there on our tank. And there will be one more fitting left, which is this one here. This one has a 90 in it. You can take the remaining portion of your air line and cut it clean, you know, plug that in. And then this line is going to just run all the way towards the back of our coach, where the hitch is essentially. That way we can mount up an air fitting that'll actually allow you to plug your vehicle side into the coach's air system. So our line that we ran from our tank, you know, follows the frame, goes all the way back here to where we have our air fitting mounted up. And pretty straightforward. You want to put it in a spot that makes sense, easy to get to. I just took a piece of flat metal and attached it to our bracket here for our motorhome's 7-way and bolted it to that. So you could do something like that. You could use a no-drill long bracket that we offer here that would clamp around the hitch, and you could bolt it to that. And even in the past, I didn't really want to do it on this coach just because it's kind of flimsy here, but I've even just drilled it right through the fiberglass before and used the big washers that they give you, plate washers, and secured it there too. So really whatever you see fit. And once you got it mounted, you know, you can cut this to length or bundle up any extra that you might have and push it right into the fitting. With everything hooked up on the coach now, you want to check for leaks, right? So at this point, start up the motorhome, let it build full air pressure. Not a bad idea to hit the brakes a couple of times. Just kind of let it do its thing for a minute, shut it off, and check for those leaks. Usually it's pretty obvious. You'll normally hear it leaking, but to be on the safe side, you can get under there, take some soapy water, spray those fittings and everywhere that we made connections. And if you see bubbles, you know, rapidly and continuously forming, you know you have a leak then. If that happens to you, take all the air, you know, drain all the air back out, go on there, you know, undo that connection, recut the line, clean everything up, plug it back in, and run through that same process until you verified that you don't have any leaks anymore. Once that part is done though, then you're good to go. And with that said, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system for the motorhome side only on our 2014 American Coach American Revolution motorhome.